What's up guys, this is Matt Day from the Matt Day Photo Film Show, and I finally had some free time to make a new episode for you guys. This summer has been extremely busy, as I'm sure you guys have noticed. There's been a lack of videos over the last couple of weeks. For both my wife and I, we've been extremely busy this summer, and I haven't had as much time as I did, in the spring whenever I first really got this show started. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm, going to stop the show anytime soon or anything like that. I've just been really busy, but I have been writing down all of my ideas for future episodes. So hopefully, when fall weather or winter, even then, if things slow down, I'll be able to get back in the groove of, maybe a new episode every week or 2 episodes every week, something like that. But it's Labor Day and I don't have anything going on today, so I figured this would be a good time to go ahead and make a video for you guys. And the episode today, we're going to be going over the Mamiya C330. I actually owned one of these cameras last year, and I ended up selling it, and then shortly afterwards I started missing this camera. So I picked up another one, and definitely going to hang on to it now. At least I say that now. I've been known to go back and forth between gear plenty of times. But it's one I've really been enjoying using. It's a lot of fun to use. For a twin lens reflex, it's plenty for me, and for 6x6, I don't really have any complaints. So anyway, we'll go over more stuff like that, but that's what we're going to be going over today. So for starters, like I said, and as you guys can see, it's a twin lens reflex, meaning there are 2 lenses here. And the way that works, this is your viewfinder here, and it's a waist level viewfinder. There is a prism finder as well, but this is the waist level viewfinder, so you're going to be looking down through this right here, and what you're going to be seeing is what this lens is seeing. And the lens below it is actually going to be the taking lens, and you can see here on the side, that's where your shutter is actually controlled. But the way this works, because these are both on the same plane, you're able to see your focus through this lens, and the taking lens will be on the same distance from your subject, what you're focused on, to the film. So your photos are still going to be in focus even though you're not looking through that lens. It's because they're on the same plane. Now, on this camera, you can do extreme close-ups, a lot closer than you could do with a standard TLR, and that's because it has bellows focusing. And as you can see, I mean, you can get down inches away from your subject and get focus. But because of that, if you were looking through this lens, something up close, I may not even get it in the shot at all, depending on how I'm framing things. So for this camera, there is a little needle inside the viewfinder. So basically, when you're looking at your ground glass, you're going to see a needle at the top of the top left of your frame, and the closer you get, that needle is going to drop down. And basically what that is that's going to tell you where the top of your frame is. So if you focus really close, it's going to compensate for that, and down towards the halfway mark to the bottom of your frame, that needle is going to be sitting there, basically to remind you that's where your lens is going to start, your taking lens, because your viewing lens is seeing something completely different because of the height. So you really only have to take that into consideration when you're focusing on up close. It's pretty simple to compensate for that whenever you're focusing on something pretty far away, but with this camera in particular, the close focusing, that's something that you'll definitely want to make note of. Let's see, some standard information on this one though. Like I said, it's got bellow focusing. This is the 80mm f2.8 lens, and 80mm is basically your normal lens, your standard lens on a 6x6. And it is the 2.8, like I said, so you'll go from 2.8 all the way to 32, and your shutter speeds range from 1/500th of a second all the way to 1 second, and then bulb as well, so you can do really long exposures if you'd like. Basic functions of the camera, like I said, you've got a waist level viewfinder right here, but you can actually unscrew this and put on a different viewfinder. So I have a prism viewfinder as well that I don't really use it too much, but it is kind of nice. You can hold the camera a little bit higher, and you're actually going to be looking through a prism, so whenever you turn left and right, everything is normal, whereas with a waist level finder, because there's no mirror, things are horizontally backwards. So if you've used a waist level viewfinder before, though, it's same thing, nothing different. Over here on the side, you've got a switch here for single exposure or multiple exposure. I have it set on multiple right now because there's no film in here right now, and I'm going to show you guys the shutter speed and stuff like that. And in order to do that without film, you just have to switch it over to multiple exposure. But let's see, over here on the side, this is kind of neat. There's a little bar right here, and you can actually rotate it several times, and on the end of it, it gives you a focal length to choose from. So for instance, this is the 80 millimeter lens, so I'm going to set it to 80 right there, and if you look back here, there's like a little distance scale, basically going from infinity to 30, 15, 10, 7, 5, and it's in a range of, it's measured by feet. And as you focus, that red bar moves back and forth. So basically, if you wanted to almost do like scale focusing, like in street photography, or hyperfocal focusing, stuff like that, you can use this right here and set your distance without actually looking through the viewfinder, stuff like that. You could just set it on the side of the camera and have it ready. Which that isn't something that I've ever used, but some people might find a use for it. Over here on the side, this is where you're going to be able to change the lens. So over here, it's turned to the lock setting, so we're going to switch it to unlock, and it's pretty hard to do that, so you're not going to accidentally be bumping this and your lens fall off. But you flip that over, and then on the front, there's this little bar here. You bring this down and across, and that's actually going to free your lens. And the lens literally just kind of sits in there. It's a lot like a large format camera, if you've ever worked with those before, where you have the lens board that just sits into place and locks in. It's kind of the same principle, but you can see here you've got your shutter speeds and your aperture. It's all in the lens. It's a leaf shutter, and you just set it right back in there and bring this over, lock that up, and then switch this back to the lock position, and you're not going to be able to pull this bar out without setting it to unlock first, so that's nice. And another thing to keep in mind over here is as you turn this, you can set it to 80, to 105, to 135, and basically what that's going to do is it's going to control that little beam or that little needle in your viewfinder that tells you, basically your parallax compensation. So, like I was saying with close focusing, it's going to tell you where the top of that frame is. You can set that according to what lens you have on there. So, if I threw a longer lens on there, the top of the frame is going to be a little bit different than if I were shooting with this 80. So you can choose that per lens. Over here on the side, there's you've got your focus lock. So if you pull this little thing forward, you're not going to be able to turn it. But if you pull this back, it's a lot easier to turn. So it's kind of useful for studio settings, stuff like that. Which I don't use it, but like I said, some people, it might be helpful for them. To go ahead and take a shot, you advance this one turn like that, and what that's going to do is it's going to move your film to the next frame, and it's also going to cock the shutter here. And I'll do it again, but I'll let you hear the shutter. We'll set it at 1/250th of a second. It's a really quiet, almost spring sounding shutter. But like I said, you turn this crank one time, and that's going to move the film onto the next frame, and it's also going to cock the shutter. And you can see that right here. This is where you actually cock the shutter, and you can see as I move this, it pulls it down and sets the shutter so it's ready to go. And you have two different shutter releases right here. You've got one kind of in the front, almost like a Hasselblad type camera, just like that. And there's also one here on the side that you can use with your thumb. And I don't really have a set way of doing it. I find myself using both of these all the time. Sometimes I'm holding it like this, and I just want to pull down on the thumb right there. And then sometimes I've got, my index finger right here, and I'll just pull it back like that. So both ways I think are comfortable. And another thing to keep in mind is you do have a lock setting, because something like this can be triggered easily if you advance to the next frame and then put it in your camera bag. That could easily be hit, and you're going to waste a shot right there. So if you pull this little red button back there under the L, that's going to lock your shutter, so you can't do anything until it's pushed forward, and then there you go. So what we'll go ahead and do, for the sake of showing you guys, I'll go ahead and load up a roll of film to show you how that works. If you've ever loaded 120 film before, it's pretty simple. You open up the back of the camera like this, and you've got a little pressure plate that you can move and turn over for 220. So if you want to use 220 film, you'll be able to get 24 shots. But if you're going to be using 120, you'll be getting 12 shots. So I'm going to go ahead and load a roll of Tri-X here. So just like loading any other medium format camera, you get rid of this little tab here. And down here is where you're going to be setting the roll of film. For instance, this would normally be sitting down here, the empty spool from the last roll. But we'll go ahead and set this down, kind of drop that into place. Actually, start it on this side, and then with this hand, you're going to pull this out, and that's going to release a little pin. It's going to lock into place. So now that that's in place, you go ahead and get this centered up. You want that little gap, or your little slot to put your film leader in there. Go ahead and set that in there and kind of hold it a little bit, keep some pressure on it. There we go. And I'm going to wind it until the start arrow lines up right there with these two red dots. And then when it's there, I close it, and then I rotate this little dial back to the left. And you can see a little indented right arrow, meaning whenever you're done, you spin this to the right, and then you actually slide it this way. So you rotate it and then slide the button, and that's going to pop your back open. But now that it's in there, I'm going to go ahead and wind it on until I get to the first frame, and your frame counter is right here, and it's automatically stopped. So I'm going to go ahead and set that down, set it to single exposure to remember, you know, always check that before you start shooting, so that way you're not going through what you think is a whole roll of film and realize you've been exposing the same frame over and over. So now that that's set, go ahead and set my lock on, since I know it's already advanced and ready to go. And that's it. So it's a fun camera. Like I said, it shoots 6x6 negative, and part of the fun, I think, of medium format is shooting 6x6, because it's such a different aspect ratio than you know, your standard digital camera or 35mm camera. You know, you can shoot 6.45 or 6.7, and those are different than 35mm ratio, but 6.6 is a really really unique kind of format that kind of stands on its own, in my opinion. So it's a lot of fun. Twin lens reflex cameras are fun to use, I think, not just because of the waist level viewfinder, because, you know, a lot of medium format cameras have that, but they're kind of in their own little you know, world, basically. And whenever you're out on the street and, you know, you have an old camera, most of the time they'll stand out, but twin lens reflexes really stand out because they're such a classic design. No other cameras are really made like that. So a lot of people, that's the first thing they see is, wow, that's an old camera. And you can kind of use that to your advantage if you're into that sort of thing, shooting out on the street, working with strangers, stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. They're usually pretty compact cameras. I don't think the C330 is too big, but in the twin lens reflex world, that's kind of the big monster. So if you're looking for something smaller, there's the Yashica 124G. I think that camera can be had for even less than this, which you don't get that close-up focusing or interchangeable lenses, but it's a great camera still, and it's probably a great way to break into twin lens reflex shooting, you know, if it's something you're not used to and you want to try it out without spending too much. That's definitely a good option. If you really want to dive in and spend, you know, a good amount of money, Rolleiflexes are, you know, they're basically like what people consider the Leica of TLRs. I've never shot with one. I'd love to, but I don't love twin lens reflexes that much. If I did, you know, I would probably go for it because I know how I am, and I can't resist gear sometimes. But you know, there's plenty of options out there. Not just those three brands. There's plenty of options out there. So the C330, you can have that set up anywhere between $250 and $350 all day long. You know, you just gotta look online, check with other photographers. A lot of the Facebook groups that I'm in, I see them pop up all the time, usually with that same lens. So the deals are out there. You can find them for pretty cheap, but that's all for today. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. And that's it. So we'll see you guys next time, and thanks for watching.